Hi everyone, this is Katy Groves, and this is another deprogramming update. I'm actually going to be kind of talking things through as I deprogram them in this video. I first want to say that I'm nervous about doing this because I've been recently accessed, and it seems like since I started speaking more in depth about my deprogramming process as it's happening right now, I may have made myself vulnerable to being reaccessed. But I'm getting so much more from sharing this stuff than I am from holding it in an attempt to protect myself from being used. So I'm going to go ahead and keep doing this. And if eventually I have to stop, then I will. But for now, it seems like I have overcome this recent issue with accessing. And if more is happening without my knowledge, that is yet to be revealed. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and keep going as I have been before. Right now, I am having an incredible experience. I shared in my video just a bit ago, my last one, about entering the central axis of my system and undoing light side, dark side dualities. Entering into the core of myself now, in my chest area, I am finding the hub, it is called, of the robot controller program that made me believe that I am a robot and that I'm operating my entire body like it is a mechanical shell, like a mechanical device, whose job it is to help me survive war. The program that I'm deprogramming right now that I was set up in as a child was a Delta program that involved me believing I was an android or a machine of some kind, and that I was in a war zone, and that I was operating my body from a control room in my chest, in which a team of polyfragmented alters operated core programs. And I was so jacked up on adrenaline and stimulating drugs, I believed that I was in a battlefield all the time, and that I had to defend myself against perceived threats 24/7. So the level of hypervigilance, the level of adrenaline, and other such neurotransmitters or hormones, I don't remember which, I'm mixed up in my process, was intense. Absolutely intense. I'm finding my way through this maze inside where I find the core part of the control room, and I'm typing in the key codes to undo the programming. This will result in a temporary system failure in which my body stops functioning in many ways. It won't kill me, but it will result in some physical issues. I'll be pretty shut down, and I may have trouble taking care of myself. But I will come back to some kind of homeostasis and start relearning and rewiring my brain to perform functions of my choosing that I need to perform in order to survive, that are not based in programming and not coming out of the terror-based way of thinking that I was programmed to have, where everything was a life or death situation. I'm breathing, and I'm going in and I'm accessing the core trauma that created these programs. And I'm also seeing where I am in my system and connecting to the polyfragmented nature of my dissociative identity disorder. So seeing that I'm in but a sublayer of sublayers, many sublayers in this system that we have as a whole. And so I'm connecting to the fact that I'm not deprogramming myself. Absolutely, I'm deprogramming myself in part. And this is good. It sets me up to not have too high expectations for this process. And to understand that this is just but a small step towards full freedom. Structures are dissolving, and this toxic energy is starting to spread in my body as I release trauma. I'm starting to feel sick, like I'm going to throw up, and I realized I need to drink some water. I'm breathing. I'm looking at myself. I'm noticing my body. I'm noticing that I have crust in my eyelashes that I really want to pull out, but I'm not going to do that right now because I'm not yet used to having control over my body, and I'm afraid that I might hurt myself by being too violent or exerting too much strength. I was used in super strength programs. There is a function, for anyone who doesn't know, in the fight or flight system in which a person under extreme duress is able to perform superhuman feats of strength. For example, like a woman who lifts a car off of her infant child in order to save it and throws the car off of it. That is a result of an extreme stress response. I shouldn't say fight or flight. That implies a duality that isn't there. There's really fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses. I don't like the dualistic way that people describe that response when they narrow it down to two things. But yes, it's a function of the stress response. This is something that MK Ultra programmers harness. They purposefully induce it through extreme trauma in their victims and then use it in programming. So they program the person to relive the trauma that created their ability to perform that superhuman task, and then they force them to relive that program. I'm sorry, I got tripped up. They force them to relive the trauma over and over again. Sorry, I started to have a flashback and kind of dissociated there. So I hope that makes sense. That's something that was done to me in the super soldier programming, in the Delta programs. So I'm coming in contact with the traumas that created this, structures dissolving. I'm finding my way. I'm finding my way through all of this. I'm starting to come back into my body, into the host cells, out of the hub. The hub is now dissolved, and parts are coming together. They're transferring into healing zones, parts of the system that are safe, where they can recover from their traumas. And I'm getting a better sense of who the host is in my system, and I'm starting to meet parts who I'll be interacting with on a day-to-day basis now that I'm no longer in the hub, but I'm in the main part of the system, in the front parts of the brain, the conscious host parts of the brain. I'm breathing. I'm starting to get access to memories and starting to gain knowledge of my surroundings, of where I am, of who my partner is out in the other room. I'm rapidly gaining access to memories of our day-to-day life. And I'm also aligning with parts in the central axis. So the middle part of me that I talked about in my last video, that part of me is starting to merge with my consciousness. I guess I was like an apex for the system, a strong point of connectivity, a core part. And so my integration is tugging on the strings of a lot of parts that were connected to me and forcing them to come in contact with host parts and integrate too. And it's not that they're being really forced, it's the natural consequence. I wouldn't be able to integrate if those parts weren't ready to come with me on some level. It's all kind of law of attraction based. Like the energy just flows through us. So we're integrating. I'm seeing a lot of things. I'm seeing that my rigid black and white way of thinking in Delta programs was false. That it makes sense when you're in a war zone to think the way I did. It doesn't make sense now. And it didn't make sense for most of the time that I was thinking like that. I was actually used a lot in the day-to-day. So that's part of why I'm able to integrate so easily with day-to-day alters, not nighttime alters, is because I was used to keep this level of stress response up while in normal everyday situations like going to the grocery store or going for a walk down the street with my dogs as a child. I was not actually used in the hardcore traumas. Hardcore traumas were used to create me. But my job was actually to maintain this high stress response or this high state of stress so that we could activate the extreme superhuman responses in the event that extreme trauma happened unexpectedly while we were in our day-to-day lives. So let's say we're having, let's say that we're walking down the street with our dogs in our neighborhood, and someone not in the perpetrator network, but a random perpetrator tries to kidnap us. We could go into the martial artist altar and beat the living shit out of them and run for our lives at full speed. Basically, these are programs to enable, a little girl to take on a grown man and run for her life, outrun a car. So in the event that I'm walking down the street and something like that happens, my job was, because it's not my job anymore, as this altar in the hub, to trigger the stress response that would enable us to do all those things. So integration for me is a lot easier than it would be for an altar who was used to do superhuman tasks in the nighttime side of things. The horrible traumas didn't happen exclusively at night. They happened all throughout the day, but our duality for daytime, nighttime is not so strictly based on the times of day and night. It is to a degree, because worse things did often happen at night, but it's more a question of trauma. So the nighttime altars handled the trauma. The daytime altars handled the front stuff, the stuff like walking dogs and, playing with my dolls and things like that. So I'm starting to recognize that I'm having an easier time right now integrating than most parts in my system would. That there are parts in my system in the hub that are going to have a hard time. Those are the ones that have been taken to healing zones. I'm not so much in a healing zone. I'm being really rapidly taken into the host parts. So I'm just talking out loud as this happens. I hope this all makes sense. Yes, there is filtering going on to protect us, but I really like sharing my deprogramming process online. I really think that it can benefit people if it doesn't trigger them too badly. And I certainly think it can benefit non-survivors who want to understand more about how this stuff works so that they can be allies to our community. Lastly, I'm going to wrap up and say I'm going to make a self-care plan. I'm going to drink some water. I'm going to eat some food, not sugary stuff, but real food. And then I'm going to do some meditation and grounding exercises, and maybe do some body work, stretching out on the floor, because I'm really starting to adjust to being in the body now. This is a weird feeling. I've been in the hub totally dissociated from the body for many years. And now all of a sudden I can feel my arms and legs. Everything feels numb and weird because trauma is processing through our body. There's lots of nerve stuff with our nervous system going on. But I'm going to try to get into the body and relax and do some system mapping, really get to know where I am inside, and then take it from there. Start working to integrate and deprogram other parts, as I'm now joining the host system as an integrator and deprogrammer. Thank you.